Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. It's Rebound and I'm back at it again with another video. So I just wanted to go ahead and do a midnight chat. I'm up when I should be asleep because I have to wake up early tomorrow, but I love you all so much that I felt, it was important to get on here and share some of my thoughts in this ever-changing world, right? I mean, there's so much going on in the world right now. But I guess instead of focusing on current natural disasters, we can talk about narcissism. And, you know, I do feel that, examining the topic of narcissism is very important, right? Because we have a lot of that going on right now. And I see that, on this channel, there's an interest of discussing demons. There's an interest of discussing gang stalking. And of course, to some of my viewers from day one, we've always discussed the concept of narcissism. And, all these things go hand in hand. So let's go ahead and, break down some more things that I've noticed when it comes to the narcissist. And pretty much, I use interchangeably the term narcissist with narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. And so this is a disorder that's pretty much rooted in shame. And members within this community, what's stated by psychology is that because these individuals are holding on to childhood trauma and shame, this is why they tend to act out. And that's the worldly view of it, right? And so narcissists are going to do things such as gaslight, right? So this is manipulation, it's psychological manipulation. They're going to do things like, smear campaigns, so talking crap about you. They're going to love bomb you and slowly begin to devalue you. And then they're going to discard you. Everything about the narcissist is based off of manipulation. And for those of us who have dated narcissists, who have married narcissists, who have had kids with narcissists, who have been born in narcissistic families, it is pretty much hell on earth. And when it comes to understanding this particular disorder, there is a spectrum. And everyone has narcissistic tendencies. However, to be classified in this disorder, you have to carry, I forget how many traits, but it's quite a few traits, right? So you have a high sense of entitlement, of course, as I mentioned, a great deal of shame. You're unable to introspect. You project a lot. Of course, you're manipulative. You gaslight. I mean, there's a list, right? And psychology wants to call this particular thing a disorder. And even though I do believe that it's a disorder, what separates narcissism from, and the cluster Bs from any other type of disorder is pretty much their disorder is equivalent to evil. So we call these people disordered, but everything that they do that's disordered is evil. And if you want to get deeper into that, I recommend a book. It's called People of the Lie. And it's a small book. It's an easy read. It came out, I want to say, in 1983 or 1985. And it was some pretty horrendous things that I read in this book that, different families were doing to other family members. And, it was a bestseller. And for some reason, narcissism kind of went underground and everybody forgot about it. Right. And it's very dangerous to forget about disorder as severe as this one, right? So when we study sociopaths and psychopaths, we understand that they are, some of the worst creations, right, in society. However, in order to be a sociopath or psychopath, you have to be a narcissist first. And narcissists, they're very clever in how they get away with the damage that they do to people. And this is why it's important to really understand the disorder, because you will be able to understand the world that we live in, which is something that I've always preached on this channel. Now, going back to the narcissistic spectrum, you have your covert narcissists and you have your overt narcissists. The covert narcissist is going to be a narcissist who is, you know, for all purposes, covert, right? So these are the people who are going to try to get you to feel sorry for them. And by doing this, this is how they can manipulate you and to do various things for you. But once again, they are envious, and they will sabotage you. And then you have your overt narcissist who's more grandiose, and needs to be the center of attention. And they have a high sense of entitlement, whereas the overt narcissist, the covert narcissist is going to want you to pity them. The overt narcissist once again, they're entitled and they want to be the center of attention. But at the root, they're all the same. And then you have the malignant narcissist, and these are just people who they don't give a fuck, right? They know they're evil, and they don't care, right? So I believe these are like your mature overt narcissists, right? So when you look at narcissists, whether covert or overt, they do get worse with age, and it's a pretty interesting thing. But going back to something that I observed about the narcissists, I do believe when they're communicating with someone who is empathic, there's something that goes on in their brain where they just don't understand the empath. And it's, ever since I woke up to narcissism and, understood what they were, I would study them, right? So I would have them as coworkers or, just people I knew in real life. And I would just study how their, various manipulation tactics. I would study how they would mirror me, how they would agree with everything that I would say, how they give me compliments as a form of manipulation. But when communicating with them, especially with anything in regards to anything close to truth or some form of like thought-provoking, I don't know, a topic, it would always, not only would it frustrate them, but it's like the narcissist can't understand. It goes against their programming, right? So you could say something, I don't know, let's use an example, the sky is blue. And then you'll have a narcissist say, I can't believe you said the sky is green. Why would you even say that? That's the dumbest crap I've ever heard before, right? And, it's interesting, because, I've learned that when I communicate with a narcissist, they do have a hard time understanding me, but when they're communicating with other narcissists, they understand, right? Clearly. But we could be saying the same thing. And, I found that to be very, very strange. And just when you observe the behavior of narcissists on social media. So for those of you who have been following the channel, you know that I grew up with narcissists and I've had many narcissists as friends. And narcissists, they always tell you what they do, right? And, I had a narcissistic friend who would post these outrageous comments or things on people's Facebook accounts so that he could get a reaction. And I remember him telling me this in the past, and, I didn't really think about it. But this is exactly what narcissists do. And, it's an interesting ball game when it comes to dealing with narcissists on social media. And even when it comes to dealing with narcissists on a channel that talks about narcissistic abuse recovery, right? And, sometimes when, I'm engaging either on my comment threads or other channels, I will just study, right, the comment left by a particular person who is, disagreeing with whatever the creator of the channel was speaking of. And what's interesting is, and for a while I used to think it was an AI program, right? Because I didn't really think that people would just make these strange connections, right, to try to bait you in an argument. But if it isn't an AI system, there's a narcissist behind the screen, right? But the narcissists, they will tend to put words in your mouth. They will tend to, ask you questions to bait you in an argument. Um, and sometimes they'll come off really nice at first, right? And what's also interesting about the disorder is many people who suffer from a narcissistic personality disorder, they're unaware, or at least they make it appear that way, right? So we know that introspection is something that the narcissist is. Honestly, I almost feel like they're incapable of doing it. I think that's a part of the disorder. I think that they're really unable to look deep within because it hurts too much. And for those of us who don't suffer from this personality disorder, it's weird because we can always introspect, right? But I really do believe that the narcissist, they can't, or they choose not to. And they'll just project their insecurities onto their victims, right? And it's very strange. It's very strange. So going back to the topic of gang stalking. Now, I don't know if I have too much to say on gang stalking. I've did 2 videos on it, so check them out. But I'm gonna give you all a theory, right? It's late, and I'm a pretty honest guy, and I like to speak my mind. And I do believe the concept of gang stalking is interesting. I do think the concept of demonic possession is interesting, as well as a plethora of so many different things. But when it comes to exposing this hive mind, or just really sharing certain things that I've picked up about them, during my 3-year period of recovery, and really understanding what the disorder is, I feel that narcissists are curious and they want to know how much we know, right? So I know that they're aware of each other because I've seen how they operate around each other. And, it's very interesting to watch. But I also feel that the narcissists, they know who the empaths are, or they know who the wounded are and potentially won't be narcissists, right? And as we're cracking the code to this particular disorder, I do feel that they watch and they gauge because they want to know how much we know. They want to know, like, how do we know that gang stalking truly exists, right? They want to know if we really understand how demonic possession works, right? Because I feel like this is something that the narcissist suffers from. And once again, I don't feel like they're in control 100% of the time. And this is why when it comes to gang stalking, they're placed in different positions, right? Different areas where, let's just say you go no contact. And in my case, I went no contact with a friend and I drove to the store and he was there, right? So, and I remember growing up, and I would always wonder, right? Like how can the narcissist, how do they know certain things, right? And we used to joke about it with my adopted mother, who was a dark triad, right? So we would say that she had a sixth sense because it was just she knew some things, but I really do feel like it was a spiritual entity helping her. And I believe that since she had given herself over to this thing, over time it just gained more and more power, and she was able to use these particular, I guess you can call it, this dark power, to once again help break down her victims. And going back to the topic of this hive mind, and for a lot of older viewers, I apologize, this is going to be a story that I'm just going to repeat because we do have quite a few new viewers on the channel, and welcome to all of you. But when I was first adopted, there was a ritual the family would do, right? And pretty much I'm living with the family, and there's 3 generations of people. So the members who adopted me, they're elderly. They're in their late 60s. They had kids who were old enough to be my parents, and then those kids had kids who were like my age. And a ritual of the family was to pretty much set me up, and something would be done or a story would be made up. And without these narcissists being next to one another, they were all able to tell the same story. And honestly, it would just, when I was younger, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how I would get in trouble for things, and it was as if the narcissist accusing me of the crime was there, right? And you know, and what's also interesting with the narcissist, right? It's like they'll bait you into things, but you have to take the bait in order before they punish you, right? So I remember going to the store with my nephew, and he's maybe 2 years younger than me. And I remember we did this after we got out of church, and it was a Wednesday night, and we got out of church early that night, maybe like an hour early. And we go to the store. He hides the items in his pocket, and we get home, right? Now the door is immediately open, right? And my adopted father is just standing there. My nephew goes into the house. Nothing happens to them. He's of course he's a part of the hive mind. And then I get punched in the face, and my adopted father never asked me what happened. He never asked me what I did, but he just knew. Same thing with my adopted mother, right? They would never question me like, okay, did you do this? Did you not do this? It was just like they knew. And then let's just say, even if I didn't commit the crime, everyone in the family, whether they were there or not, knew of it. And every time I would get in trouble with these people, I couldn't understand how they would know of these particular events if they weren't communicating with each other. And, I remember getting in an argument with someone in the family. My adoptive father's at church at the time, right? And what's funny is I talk about church, right? A lot of narcissists are in the church, by the way. If for those of you viewing this video, if you weren't aware of that, right? But I get in this argument. He's at church at the time. I leave the house and I go back to church, right? I walk with my adoptive father home. Literally walk with him home, right? Get in the house and he completely starts going off on me. And there was no communication. I was there with him. And once again, it's like this hive mind. They have like I don't know if telepathy is the right word, but they pick up on things, right? And I even think that even when they're placed in positions of power, let's just say they're a manager at a certain company, or some sort of professional. And for those of us who study the narcissists, we know that they're not, without their tricks, they're not really the brightest people. Yet they can take these board exams and pass them, and they're very good at playing their role, even if it's like pretend, right? So I've had many narcissistic managers who they knew how to get the job and they knew how to keep the job, but they didn't know what they were doing, and they don't do anything all day, right? And then they'll create these narcissistic safe havens, and you'll wonder why the company is like operating and why it doesn't go under business, because it seems like the majority of people in the company are more focused on devaluing one person or creating an illusion that they're working, but they're really not. And it's very interesting. It's very, 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 very interesting. And, the narcissists, even, this happened a lot in the medical field, is they would come up with these treatment plans for the patients, and it would just sound so believable, and it would just sound so great. And you would realize that the narcissist was making up it as they went along. Like, it's it is the craziest thing. I can't tell you. Like, when I tell you these people are like the best actors, and they're it's like unbelievable. So once again, I do believe that they do have like a dark entity helping them, and this is why they're able to maneuver through society a little bit better than most. And I'm not saying all narcissists, but you'll notice, right? Like, for someone as myself, when it comes to just upward mobility and trying to just elevate myself, it's a lot harder. And I know that like with narcissists, it seems like it's not hard for them at all, right? To, get these different job positions and to kind of fake their way, right? And another weird thing too is I do believe that narcissists can always tell when you're lying, right? And I was reminded of this with a particular interview. It was a video interview, and I really wanted this job, and I was supposed to interview with two people, and for some reason was only one. And the camera comes on, and I'm like, oh, you're not what I expected. Like, I'm thinking that in my head, right? And he's just looking at me, blank stare, and I start to get really uncomfortable, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if this interview is gonna go good, right? And I remember, he's asking me all these questions. He's like, "Oh yeah, that was a good response. You did really well." But I could tell, like, just his vibe and aura that he was not a fan of me. And I remember him asking me. He asked me if I was good with Excel, and I have a little bit of Excel knowledge, but not that much, right? And I'm like, "Yeah, I can work with it." And I just remember he just gave me this blank stare and looked at me, and I'm like, "Oh, please God, don't let him ask me to share my screen and show him how to do something on Excel." So he gave me that blank stare, and then he went to the next question, right? And long story short, I didn't get that job. But what's crazy is narcissists, they're like pathological liars. And I feel like when someone who's empathic, when they lie to them, they can always pick up on it, right? Always pick up on it. And I just found that to be pretty interesting. But yeah, so just wanted to get on here and share those few things. And I'll briefly touch on this because I don't want the video to be longer than 30 minutes. But when it comes to this hive mind, they like when someone, a part of the hive mind, talks about particular issues, right? And so, there's a whole bunch of talk when it comes to this high value man, high value woman running online, right? It's going mainstream. And if you really listen to the speakers, they mix in truth with lies. And, it's just interesting how they will all kind of tag around one narcissistic leader. They'll prop them up, and next thing you know, that leader has like millions of subscribers, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And you listen to some of the stuff that they're speaking of, and it just sounds so basic, right? It like lacks substance, it lacks critical thought. And the narcissists, I feel like when they gain these huge followings, they always need a scapegoat, right? So we'll look at, a lot of this, these young men, they will rise to popularity, and they'll talk about how men need to elevate, right? And they need to improve themselves if they really want to have a woman, right? Because you have to realize, according to their theory, you have to realize that women are going to seek men who can only benefit them, right? But in the same sentence, they devalue the woman. And, it's like once they devalue the woman, it almost gives their following a green light to like, bring up their platform. And it's very interesting to watch, and you will listen to some of the stuff that they're saying. And once again, it's a lot of basic stuff, a lot of cliches, a lot of watered down stuff, a lot of stereotypes, and different prejudices. And once again, these people will be propped up, and you could have someone who is speaking, something more thought-provoking, more truthful, and not only will their platform not be how do I want to put this? It will not be promoted by this YT algorithm, but viewers who will listen to those people will attack the speaker, right? And put words in the speaker's mouth and say that the speaker's wrong and this and that. But once again, when there's someone of that hive mind who is speaking of, on a particular topic, you will just look at the flying monkeys, right? So this is going to be like the narcissist fan base. It's all going to be the same mind, but once again, they will prop that narcissist up. And this is a really good way if you ever wanted to, study whether or not someone was a narcissist, is reading the comments. Because high level narcissists, they always have a ton of flying monkeys. And so you can go in their comments and you could read just some of the comments left. And pretty much that will tell you who's a narcissist and who's not. But, I want to do a video on that, later when it comes to a lot of these young men coming and speaking of, this idea of the high value man, right? I just think, I just think it's a very basic concept, especially when it's rooted behind money, right? So money is what gives you value in a collapse in society. To me, it kind of makes no sense. But, when it comes to value, I think if anything is of value, it's your soul, right? But, a lot of these channels forget about things like that. And once again, the narcissists, they don't like to talk about deep subjects. So anything that is going to require some deep thought and critical thinking, they will never touch those things, right? Never touch those things. So we can talk about attaining wealth, but we can't really talk about the collapsing economy, right? And it's once again, they're very particular on the things that they focus on. But I guess that's going to be it for this video. I don't know if I'm going to post it. I wanted to get on here and say something. And just, share some of the thoughts that I have been, noticing when it comes to studying these group of individuals. And, I was thinking about this earlier. It's funny how these members in this hive mind always get propped up. And we always want to say that we live in a society that isn't rooted in evil. But even when you go back and study the propaganda of World War II, and you look at people like Stalin and Hitler, how they rose to power. And, the green light is given, and then society's like, oh my God, I can't believe these psychopaths, and I can't believe they did this, and they're so evil. But during the time when they were in power, they were propped up and followed by millions of people, right? So if that doesn't tell you how big this hive mind is and how big, how serious, or the issue of how evil this world is, I don't know what else to tell you. But it's funny how do these members always rise to power? Now, could the propaganda be deceiving the masses, right? But then once again, why do, when you go back and look at history, why does everybody turn a blind eye when there's a group of people who are marginalized and scapegoated and, in World War II, killed, if what they say in history books are true, right? And once again, goes back to this theory of the narcissist, even as a group, as a society, they need to have a scapegoat. And if the scapegoat is suffering, as long as it isn't them, then they're fine, right? And the scapegoat could be many people, right? It could be many groups of people. It could be children. It could be a particular race. It could be a gender. It could be, people within a certain sexuality, right? But it's funny because the hive mind always needs a scapegoat. They always need a scapegoat. But I guess that's going to be it for this video because we're approaching the 29-minute mark. I will talk to you all next time. Take care. Bye.